Welcome to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is Craig Domann, your host. Today is going to be an awesome show. My guest today is Coach Mike Nilson from Gonzaga, former player, walk-on, hoopster, podcaster, coach, trainer, speaker. This guy does everything. Coach, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of your show now.
Okay, so I want to give everybody, I want to give you a due introduction. So why don't you share with the audience kind of like what you do now and why you do it and the impact that you make?
I'm the Director of Performance and Nutrition at Gonzaga University. I've been here for 20 plus years working with athletes. I'm also a partner in a physical therapy clinic. We do sports performance counseling, sports psychology. It's called U-District Physical Therapy. I started that 19 years ago with my partners, and we have 3 locations here in Spokane. But the funnest thing I do is I'm a husband and a dad of 3 kids that love to be active, love music. And so, yeah, it's a fun time of my life just trying to balance it all. Most of my day is spent here at Gonzaga. I help athletes with nutrition for the whole athletic department. And I work just directly with women's basketball here on their sports performance, strength conditioning work. And so I really have my dream job. Growing up, I loved basketball. If you asked me when I was a teenager what I want to do with my life, I would have told you I want to play professional basketball. It was just one track mind. That's all I wanted to do. And then what I found over the years is I really love the leadership part of it. I love the nutrition, the strength conditioning, and just fell in love with all the preparation, all the things that you could do outside of the basketball court that would make huge impact to the game. And so, yeah, 20 plus years later, now I'm just helping my athletes, my kids, my family, my friends with how to eat better, how to train better, how to lead better in the game of basketball.
Okay, Coach, so I'm going to give you a real quick overview of Pro Mindset. And a book's going to be coming out soon, but Pro Mindset is about how do you perform your best in your biggest moments. And you had one of those opportunities in the playoffs in high school, your senior season that I read about. And you have many opportunities at Gonzaga while you're playing and going to the Elite Eight and things like that. But it's really about what does it take to put yourself in a position mentally, spiritually, physically, so that you can perform your best when it matters the most. And to do that, when I grew up, I played basketball was my favorite sport for many years, but I played college football. And I have 2 sons that play football. One is in between jobs in the NFL, and the other one's QB2 at the University of Louisville. But it's like, it's more than purpose, preparation, practice, your pit crew, producing a movie, visualizing what you're going to do before you do it. What I have found to really be your best, you have to go back and tackle your thoughts, the things that you carry with you onto the court. Let's just talk about basketball today. Let's take a situation where you have a player that is shooting a free throw that makes the difference whether you win the game or go to overtime, or maybe lose the game or go to overtime. And it's a sold out arena, and the game is the most important game of the season. Maybe it's to get into the tournament or not. Maybe it's in the tournament to get into the Final Four. And all that preparation, all that practice, all those things are critical. But I'm gonna challenge you and say that their identity is even more important. Who they are, because if they don't breathe the oxygen of belief when they're at the free throw line, if they're remembering something their dad said when they were in the 7th grade, when their dad was frustrated, like, hey, you're never going to make anything of yourself, that will show up right before they shoot that free throw. Even though they might have shot 10,000 free throws and worked hours and hours in the summer working on their game. So that's what Pro Mindset's about. So I want to move into going back to when you were 17 years old. And you're that dude that had obsessive passion for the sport. I've seen pictures of you carrying a basket, taking pictures at prom, homecoming, everywhere you went, you carried a basketball. Share with the audience that experience and why you did it and what that showed you and how it impacted your future.
Well, I love everything you mentioned. I mean, I think there's so many different aspects to being successful, and part of it is physical, so much of it is mental, spiritual. I think, our whole self, you impact any one of those factors and you change who you are. And so when I was younger, of course, I just wasn't as mature and didn't know what I know now. And going into my senior year, that's a big year that summer. You go down and you go to Vegas and all the travel tournaments, and that's where the coaches really get to look at you. And I torn my calf muscle that spring. And so I had to take 6, 8 weeks off where I wasn't able to prepare. I got healthy and now it was time to go travel. And I just didn't put the work in. And whether that was the physical work, the mental work, it was probably all of it. I wasn't prepared. And so I go on that tour and I kind of had the mentality, which is if you don't take the shot, you can't miss the shot. If you don't take the big shot, you can't miss the big shot. And I found myself deferring a lot, playing it safe. And when I got back home, I always had this dream of having a shoebox with all the letters from all the colleges that wanted me to come play for the school. You grow up watching Hoop Dreams, and I just had this vision that I would have that. And I got home, and the rest of the summer, I didn't get one letter. And I was really embarrassed. Just I hated that feeling of being ill prepared. And so I made a commitment that I was going to carry a basketball with me everywhere I went until the day I signed my Division I scholarship papers. And of course, all the things that went into that. And when you're 16 or 17, you don't know all the things that go into it. I just knew that I was going to do my best, whatever that looked like. And so it was really interesting showing up to school my first day of a senior, carrying that basketball, and all my friends kind of gave me the weird look, my teachers. And a lot of people thought that maybe I was being cocky, but what they didn't know, that basketball was a sign of a time I'd failed. And it was not something I was really proud about. It was almost kind of like I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was embarrassed about his abs, he cut his shirt into a half shirt. And so there was no hiding from it. And so that was kind of my mentality. I'm dribbling it during at lunch. I'm laying in bed at night. I'm shooting it before I go to bed. And I just figured, like, man, I'm just never going to be ill prepared again. And going into my senior year, I had a great senior year. I was pretty confident. I played well, but when it came time to sign a Division I scholarship, I didn't have one offer. And so I ended up walking on at Gonzaga, which meant I carried that basketball with me for a whole nother year. And once again, you show up on campus and a lot of people might think I was cocky, but I was a walk-on redshirt freshman, lowest person on the totem pole. And so, and I'm also a non-drinker. So if you can imagine, already I'm the lowest man on the totem pole. Then I go to a party and all the guys are like, come on, have a beer. And I was so scared and nervous and felt so out of place. I wanted to hide that dang basketball so much. But I made a commitment to myself, and commitments kind of turned out to be one of the most important things in my life, because it's one of my core values and something that I really want to pass along to my kids, because I really believe with commitment, you could do anything. And it was a tough year, but ended up earning a scholarship for that next year. And people say, where's that basketball now? And I tell them, I chucked that thing. It was not a celebration. It was time to move on. It was, hey, that's never happening again. And it's been really fun to be able to take that same mindset now as a dad, or as a small business owner, as a coach, and be able to take those same life lessons that I learned as a player and be able to know that they're bigger than just a game of basketball.
Well, Coach, one of the things the way I look at identity is that we have three identities. The first one is a contract we have with our Creator. It's who we are in our faith walk. The second identity we have is the story we tell ourselves. And then you don't tell anybody else. It's a story you tell yourselves. And people think they know what you're telling yourself, but they really don't. And sometimes we think someone's telling something positive to themselves when they're really being negative. And the third story is what that basketball represented. It's your billboard story. It's your elevator speech. It's when you tell people who you are and you decide what part of you want them to know. So by you carrying I don't know if you took the basketball in the shower and everywhere, but it looked like to me you took it everywhere. The bottom line is you were making a proclamation that, hey, this is my love. This is my dream, and I'm going to do. Nothing's going to stop me, and I'm going to do everything that I humanly possibly can to make this dream come true. And so, to me, that was your billboard story.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I would say maybe another way I might look at it is sometimes it's the story your conscious self tells, and you say it enough, hoping that it reaches your subconscious. Hopefully that billboard story becomes the same inner dialogue. And yeah, I don't know all the ways. I know you've studied this so much, and the way you look at it. So I don't know if that's the way you would see it as well, but for me, I'm always thinking, I still struggle with confidence in certain areas. I love playing basketball. Every Sunday for the last 19 years, I play with a group of my friends. Some of us are old, retired basketball players. Some are current pros, current college players. And I love going out there. And it's funny because the stakes are so low. There's no TV cameras, no contracts associated with it. It's really just about being my best and having fun with my friends. But it's amazing how I can still get inside my own head and have a negative dialogue, miss a few shots in some of the stories I tell myself. Now, from the outside, it's not a billboard story. No one's seeing it. But some of my inner dialogue is just not helpful. And so it's funny, even at 46 or however old I am, I still practice stuff throughout the week. I will say things consciously over and over. I love shooting. I love taking the right shot. I love being aggressive. I love taking big shots. I'll say that literally 100 times a day, because even if it doesn't filter down into my subconscious, what I think is, at least I'm not saying the opposite. Because if I'm not really intentional with my self-talk, sometimes I could be like, man, I suck. I'm old. Maybe I need to hang them up. And those things just ruin me. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If you found that to be an effective tool, or if there's a better way of doing it.
Well, I think the way I would describe it, Coach, is let's break belief and confidence. Let's break it down. Belief is how much you love yourself. Belief is what you think of you. And so my position is you have to start at 100% belief every single day. You have to believe that you're worthy. You have to believe that you're talented. You have to believe that you deserve to take the shot. You deserve to take 1/5 of the shots on the team you're playing on pickup games on Sunday. Not giving it up and taking 1 out of 10. Now, confidence to me is how you feel about what you do. How do you feel? Maybe you're a baseline shooter. Maybe, you made a big time shot in high school from the top of the key or from the top of the 3-point line. I like to shoot from the top of the 3-point line. I'm horrible on the baseline, but it's like you have to identify where your weaknesses are in your game, and you get to have different amounts of confidence for different parts of your game. So your handle, you may have a different level of confidence. Like you were known as a defensive player in college, you probably exuded confidence when you were on defense. But when you're on offense, maybe not as much. That's okay. So my perspective is you have to put together a plan to boost your confidence in the areas that you lack 100% confidence. But belief, you stay at 100 the whole time. I don't care if you shoot your first 5 shots and you go 0 for 5. Your belief in yourself still should be at 100. Your confidence may be waning, but your belief's got to be there. And so that's my perspective on that, is that if you have some conscious awareness of the things that bust your confidence and boost your confidence, that's your workout plan. But belief never changes. Thoughts on that?
I love the confidence piece, and I think that's what I've really tried to instill in myself and my kids is if you're insecure about your free throws, well, then we know the path to be able to get there, which is mind, body, spirit, the physical act of shooting, repetitions, form. There's a path for the confidence. What's the path for belief, do you think?
I think it starts with your soul, not your mind. God creates everybody special. When he created you, he broke the mold. There's no one ever before like you, and no one ever like you going to follow you. And so you have to buy into the idea that God created you special. He created your kids special. And it's like, if he loves you and he's 100% in for you, why can't you be 100% for yourself?
When someone is struggling with that, we see people that maybe just don't have the belief that they're worthy, that they're good enough to their core. Obviously, sharing this knowledge helps them. Are there other things, other tools, other resources that you give them to help, strengthen that? You talk about the 100%, not the 99%. How would you help someone get that 100%?
That's a great question. My son, when he went to Nebraska, was a 99.9er. And he believed in himself 99.9% of the time. Actually, what happens is most people are there. Most people aren't at 100%. They're not at 50 either. They're at 99.9. And what I sense is that the symptom from that is that it's situational. Instead of believing that they're worthy all the time in every situation, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the competition, think about a basketball player. What is the most critical time in a basketball game? Everybody thinks it's like the last 30 seconds. It's warm-ups. It's when you're doing layups and you're checking out the other team. And somebody's doing a 360 jam and you're like, oh my God, who's going to guard that guy? It's like you're psyched out before the game even starts. So the question is just being aware that you could take a hit on your belief because you start comparing. You start looking outside. Belief is inside. It's an inside game. It's in the paint. It's not out on the three outside the 3-point line. And so I've got a coaching program where I teach people this stuff, but the short of it is, if you don't believe, who in the heck's going to believe in you? So you should start at 100 and let your coach be at 80. And then show your coach why they should be 100. And show them that they should trust you. Because you're not going to get on the court until you're trusted, especially if you're a young player. And so you have to, if you're stuck at 90, guess what the ceiling is for your coach and your teammates? 90. That's silly. So I'm all in. We're going 100. And I'm going to have to deal with the fact that other people around me, people that decide my play time, don't see me the way I see me. And that's a whole nother challenge. But I'm not going to deviate from the fact that I believe in myself 100% all the time.
What if it's the situation that we need to change our viewpoint on, in terms of, your son that's a 99.9er? Would he be 100%er if, when he's in these crucial moments, he realized that they're not as big as he thinks they are? In terms of, I'm thinking about a free throw. Down by 1, getting fouled with 1 second left, I get 2 shots. If I make this out to be life or death, maybe my muscles are a little tighter, my mind wanders, I'm not able to tap into the subconscious, I'm not able to fully relax and trust myself too, that really knows how to shoot, versus beginning of the game, I shoot a different percentage, or when I'm in the backyard. And so what do you think about the people that maybe put too much stake in the moment? Could that be part of the problem?
I think that hinders a player in performing freely. And so I want to break your question, into 2 parts. When it goes back to belief, for my son, he didn't believe in himself until he tore the same ACL in the same knee twice in 7 months. His coaches gave him up for dead. His teammates didn't want to talk to him. He had bad juju. Nobody wanted to be around him. And here he is having to decide, is my career over, or am I going to go do this rehab one more time? And the rehab the second time was not physical. It was mental. First time it was physical. Second time it was mental. So when it comes to believing, sometimes the sport has to be taken away. sometimes you have to divorce yourself from what you do so that you can see yourself for who you are, not for what you do.
Mm.
Okay? And so just like your kids, if they sense that you love them for performance, good luck. If they think you're only going to love them or accept them if they're good at what they do, whether it's music or singing or dancing or whatever it might be, it's going to be a tough time. But if they know that you love them to the inner core, no matter what they do, what decisions they make, what they decide to pursue in life, that's a different game. Fair?
Oh yeah, I love that. I think for what I do, of course I love my athletes. I love my job. There's no one I love more than my kids. And so I always think, well, if I can't help my sons or daughter and I live with them and I care so much about them, if I have a hard time helping them with confidence or with this certain skill, how am I supposed to help my athletes? Or I flip it on myself. Man, if I'm not able to help myself with this, how am I supposed to help my son or daughter? And so, yeah, I think with some of the parts of mental performance that I struggle with is, man, can I really teach it? If I'm not able to teach it to my son, am I able to teach it to someone else? And I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer for that either, because I think about some of the messages I heard from my parents that were so good that maybe I didn't listen to. And then it was just one random pass by comment that someone made that really stuck. And so it's kind of interesting. I don't want to give myself, too hard of a time for my kids not being perfect at all these different things that I really find valuable. But I'm always just questioning myself of like, can I really teach this? If I'm not able to do it, how is my son supposed to do it? Or if my son's not able to do it, how am I supposed to coach my athlete? And so hearing you talk about your son, I mean, obviously both your sons have had successful careers. If they're playing in the NFL and playing college football, you must have done something right. What were some of those things that you felt like you really did well to be able to help them play at the next level?
Okay, Coach, I got 3 questions I want to answer.
Okay.
I want to address how can you teach it to your kids first. And it's so simple. You show it. You don't teach it. You just show it. Show it in what you do, how you respond, because they're going to pay more attention to what you do than what you say. Okay? Then the second question is, what did I do to help my kids? I was very transparent. I told them how hard it was. I shared story after story of my clients as a sports agent over the years in guys that made good decisions and how that turned out, guys that made smart decisions and how that turned out, and how guys that didn't get drafted played 10 years because of these attributes, and guys that were drafted high that played 2 years because of different attributes. Okay? And so I've developed a pro mindset model, basically learning from my clients, passing it on to my kids, getting feedback more from my kids than my clients, because my clients, if they didn't like it, probably after we got off the phone, it went in one ear and out the other, and they just forgot about it. But with my own kids and the youth teams that I coached and the high school teams that I coached, I got real-time feedback. So then I would constantly modify. And so basically what my pro mindset model is it's more than what I had when I was their age, when I was younger. I had dedicated lifestyle. I had a dedicated lifestyle. That was all my systems, my habits, my preparation, my practice. It was all that stuff. I did that. I didn't carry a basketball with me everywhere I went like you did, but I was like you in a lot of ways. Okay? What I didn't learn when I was younger was the idea of game day. How do you perform your best in the biggest moments? How do you come up clutch in those critical times in a game? How do you the difference between making a play and not making a play is just not much. Okay? Sometimes you can shoot a free throw and it can bounce on the rim and bounce out, but sometimes you can hit it in the same place and it can bounce in. It's like, that's basketball, right? And football's worse because it's an oval-shaped ball. But to be a primetime performer, And this makes people that work hard, makes them mad, because there's some players that don't practice hard. They've got a lot of God-given talent. Maybe they don't get their sleep. Maybe they don't eat right. Maybe they stay up late playing video games or hanging out with girls or whatever, and they show up and they still can fall out. So when you start talking about a dedicated lifestyle, it only can go so far, because sometimes some people are born on third base with their athleticism. Some people are born in the parking lot. Okay. So I break down the dominant primetime performance sector into 3 parts. You got to show up, you got to build a performance bubble, and you got to be in the moment. And so show up, guess what you do? You bring your dedicated lifestyle with you. You remember all those sacrifices and time spent and hard work and visualization and practice and all those things. You bring it with you to the game. Don't leave that in the parking lot. Don't leave that in the car. Don't leave that in the locker room. And then when you create a performance bubble, you get to decide what comes in and what doesn't come in. You bring that 100% belief with you in that performance bubble. You bring that uber confidence you have in your game, and you know your game. So you're not trying to be Kobe. You're not trying to be LeBron. You be the best version of you with the game that you have and the skill set that you have and the practice that you put in. And you keep everything out that's not for you. So if a coach, somebody in your circle of influence, could be a family member, a brother, big brother picking on you when you were in the driveway when you were 7, you don't bring that with you. And you also keep out, and this is the third question I was going to answer from earlier when you asked about pressure. There's no such thing as pressure if you're free. But there's a lot of pressure if you don't have freedom. And it shows up in your mindset and it shows up in your body. Quarterback squeeze the ball. Can't throw a spiral. Basketball players, a lot of times you'll see them hit it off the backboard, because as they're taking their shot, they can feel the tenseness in their arm, and they don't want to shoot an air ball. So it's like a knee-jerk reaction. That begs the question, how do you play free? You divorce yourself of all expectations. Media comments, coach comments, parents' expectations. You don't look at the scoreboard. You don't worry about the outcome. If you're an amateur, you don't worry about the recognition you're going to get. If you're a pro, you don't worry about the future contract and money you might get. You have to create that performance bubble that you control the entire environment, and then you can play free.
How does being a great teammate fit in? Because that's what I'm really excited about recently. On our women's basketball team, we were in the top 25 all last season, had a really nice run, and we returned every player except for one. So we have 5 seniors this year that are really good supporting cast. And not that any of these players are perfect mentally or physically by any means, but they're really strong players. I think the key to our team's success, and really each player's success, is going to be how well we can rely on each other's strengths, how well we can connect, how can we take all these individual parts that are really solid and make them better. So I think that's one of the passions I have, is how do we take great players and form a great team? What are some of your thoughts as far as the pro mindset goes, as far as being a good teammate?
First thing I would do is I would have a team meeting, and I would acknowledge the fact that this year's a new year, and that so-and-so led the team in rebounds last year. Some different person led the team in assists. These were our top 3 scorers. The girl that left, where was she in the pecking order on the scoreboard? And points per game.
Maybe like 4th or something.
Okay, so your top 3 scorers are back. I would be very transparent and honest with the girls that number 3 wants to be number 1. Number 2 wants to be number 1 in scoring, and number 1 wants to be number 1. And then there's somebody else in the team that wants to leapfrog all of them. And it's okay. So I would have 2 meetings. The first one, I would say, I wouldn't tell them we're having 2 meetings. I would have 1 meeting. In the first meeting, it's all about individuals. What is everybody's dreams? What does everybody want to accomplish? What do they personally want to accomplish? What do they want to accomplish as a team? Get it all out. And there's going to be natural conflicts. There's going to be 2 people can't lead the team in scoring. Obviously, if they tie, they could, but let's assume nobody ties. Then the second meeting, I'm gonna open it up by saying, hey, I thought the first meeting was the only meeting we were going to need to have. But after reviewing what everybody's goals are, which amazing goals. You guys are jamming. But we have so many conflicting goals. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to set team goals. And basically, would you rather average 20 points a game and win half your games, or average 17 points a game and go to the tournament, win the conference? Would you rather do that, or would you rather average 15 points a game and win the national championship? And they're going to tell you what they're going to tell you. We think we know what they're going to say, but maybe we don't. And you help them understand that these personal goals are awesome, but we got to burn them. We got to burn them. I'm taking a lighter to the meeting. If they've written them on paper, I'm going to hand it back out and say, anybody wants to burn their goals, let's go. And we're going to start all over, and we're going to set team goals. And they're going to be goals like, hey, it's not going to be statistical. It's not going to be awards. It's going to be, how are we going to respond when we find out another team's just better than us? How are we going to compete, and how are we going to have an opportunity? How can we beat those guys when they know they're better than us? Everybody in the arena knows they're better than us. Our coach even knows they're better than us, and we know they're better than us. Because the reason why you play the games is because the better team doesn't always win. And then I'm going to go through a situation where maybe we're up 25. Guess what happens? You tell me what happens when your team's up 25. Let's say it's a halftime.
Well, I think human nature is to pat yourself on the back, celebrate, let your guard down a little bit. Unfortunately, that's seen that way too many times.
Here's the number one thing that creeps into a team when they get up by a big number. Selfishness kicks in. I'm going to get mine. So some girl that's only shot 5 threes the whole season is shooting up threes because she wants to get hers. We're up 25. It doesn't matter. So everybody becomes selfish. And then next thing you know, a couple minutes ago in the game, and what's the scoreboard look like now? It's pretty close. And now we got pressure. And the same thing happens. So I call it scoreboard watching. One of the most important things you need to do when you get in that performance bubble is to ignore the scoreboard. The scoreboard's like poison. Because there's always three situations you find yourself in when you look at a scoreboard. Kind of way ahead, kind of way behind, and it's a game. Guess what? Nobody likes the game. The coach has got to coach. The players got to play. And it's a struggle because every possession matters. If you're on defense, you got to close out on your shooter every time when it's a game. When you're up 25, you don't have to. True?
Oh, yeah.
So I coached high school football, and our coaches hated games. We won state 3 out of 4 years, and all they wanted was a running clock. They didn't want to coach because it was too stressful. So in that second meeting, we're going to talk about competition where it's a game. And we want to be the team that dives in head first when it's a game. And we're going to kill the will of the other team because they're going to quit. Because they don't want a game. We want a game. So I'm going to turn it around into those kind of situations, not about, how many games we're going to win, how many points we're going to score. Are we going to win conference? Are we going to go to the NCAAs? No. I'm going to talk about real life things that happen in darn near every game. What happens when the coach is in a bad mood? Coach has got family issues, and he or she brings it to the court. And she's not as your coach, a man or a woman, head coach,
a female, yeah.
Okay, so let's just say she's having one of those days where she's being short-tempered with her players. As a team, how are you going to respond to that? You going to listen to what she says? Or are you going to listen to how she says it? Because if you listen to what she says, you're going to be good. If you get butthurt because of how she says it, you're not going to be good. And we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all sometimes get short-tempered. So it's like those, to me, are the meaningful things that can make a difference and help a team that has, positive potential that might turn them into a championship-type team.
So many of the things you talk about remind me of John Stockton. And it's been so fun for the last, 25 years. I've got to see him play when he was maybe 30 years now in his prime. And then now as an adult. And it's funny because he's just slightly different than most people in a lot of areas. And one of the areas is when we play rat ball, most people play at 90% and he only knows 100%. And then if the games aren't close, if he wins 3 or 4 in a row, he'll start talking trash, but not like to demoralize the other team, but to spark them. Like, come on, let's go. And if they don't pick it up, he wants to kick them off the court, get someone else. He only wants to be in those close games. And I think that's not normal. I think most people want the running clock. They want to be comfortable. And I think it's just been a lifetime of loving to compete with him. He's such a phenomenal teammate. And I think it's because he knows how to shine in those moments. When it's game point, he's not afraid. He loves that. He loves making the big screen, getting the offensive rebound. He's such a great living example of someone with the pro mindset and really a mindset of a good teammate.
That's awesome. Coach, one other thought just popped in my head with respect to your team is to go back and identify top 10 failures last season as a team and come up with 10 different ways we failed. Maybe we failed at the beginning of a game. We were just playing flat. And bringing that up, say, how many games this year do we want to start out flat? Okay, that's got to be a goal. We're not going to start out flat. We're going to be ready to go when the ball's tipped. Another one may be we missed a free throw or several free throws. Let's say you shot 40% in the second half against a team you should have beat, and that was the reason why you lost. It was because you didn't make your free throws. Hey, we're going to make our free throws. If you shoot 70%, let's make it 70% of the time, especially in the big moments and the tough games. And so you can design a program that addresses all the things they've shown you that they've struggled with.
Yeah, I do love that idea of learning from your mistakes, and then they're really not failures. And then they're just opportunities, because especially with a team like this, so applicable. We have so many of the ladies returning again. And so I think they really can, that they were their mistakes, versus if you would do that with a team with all new players, they might not work as well because they were like, hey, that was somebody else. Yeah, I do love that idea of not wasting an opportunity to be able to grow.
Well, and the last thing I have about that concept is we all have a meta-narrative story. And the story that you have, the story that I have, the story that these young ladies have, got them to where they're at today. But where they want to go is different than where they're at. Everybody's got a dream. Every time you reach a goal, you set a new one. You have a dream, you're not there yet. You got to look in the mirror and go, my story only got me to here. So what do I need to change in my story to get me to that dream? So I would say with the ladies, with the team, I would have them rewrite their stories. Because their story may have been to get a scholarship. Your story was to get a scholarship initially, right? They had the same one. Then the story becomes, I want to be a starter. Then the story grows into, I want to average 10 points a game or 20 or whatever it might be. The story kind of grows, but then it gets stagnant. If you got any team, any of your team that's, coming into being a 3 or 4 year starter, their story's old. And the coach can't understand why they're plateauing. They're just not getting better because you perform in alignment with your story. You don't perform in alignment with your dream. You perform in alignment with your story. Change your story, change your destiny, reach your dream. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that you're mentioning, our coach does a great job of. She did an exercise pretty similar to that, where the ladies fill out how many minutes they think they should be playing, where they should be in the starting lineup. And it's amazing when you add up all the minutes for the 14 players on the team and say everyone should be playing this amount of minutes. There's only so many minutes. There's 200 minutes in a basketball game. And so I think that was, a little eye opener for the ladies to be able to have a better perspective of being a team game versus individual goals. And I think she also does a great job of every week we set aside time outside of the basketball court to work on the mental side of the game, whether that's individuals, whether that's connection, team building type stuff. Because I think you're right. Just because you've told the story once or you've created a goal once, I think these things have to be revisited all the time. And I don't know many coaches that spend as much time and dedicate them resources as Lisa does to being able to make sure that, yes, we're going to train every single week on the court, working on our plays, out of bounds, the physical side of basketball. And I think she does a phenomenal job too of being able to, hey, let's revisit this, because I really think especially that leadership, the connection piece, the mindset piece is maybe even more important as the physical side. I wouldn't say that much more in terms of, ladies have to be fast, strong, be able to shoot the ball. But I think that's really a given at this level. Really what separates the best is going to be how they approach the game as an individual and how well they can mold together as a team.
Okay, Coach. Let me ask you, what is your secret sauce? Whether it's you're talking to your kids, you're talking to the team, what is, to maximize their success, to put them in a position to have the best season they can have? What is your mindset program?
Well, I don't know if I have a secret sauce, but one of the things I'm really interested in right now is the concept of doing the easy thing consistently. I listened to a podcast with Kyle Korver, and he talked about the concept of masogi, which is something that's really difficult. It's a task in nature that you might only have less than a 50% chance of being successful in it. And really the only real true rule about a masogi is you can't die. And so I'm listening to Kyle Korver talk about some of the masogi he's done. He ran a 5K underwater carrying a 70-pound boulder. And it's really intriguing. And I think there's a lot of value in doing hard things. So this is like a thing with all my friends. We're like, man, would you do this? Why would you do this? How would that make your average, daily tasks? How much easier would they be if you were pushed up your threshold? And what will you learn about yourself in the course of, he paddleboarded for something like 8 hours straight across the ocean, and he never paddleboarded before. What do you learn about yourself in those moments? And I think those are really valuable, and I think they're needed. But what I'm really excited about is, what's the easy thing that you could do every day that most people aren't doing? And whether that's self-care, whether that's doing your prehab exercises, whether that's eating breakfast, whether that's going to bed on time, whether that's your mental performance routine, whatever that is, it's just really interesting, because most of the time with my athletes, it's the easy thing that they could do consistently, that you might not see benefits in a day or a week, maybe not even a year, but over the course of your career can make the big difference. And And so, yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really high on right now and that I'm invested in myself personally and what I've been working with my athletes and my kids on is a concept of making a commitment, a small daily commitment. And so, one of the things that my son's doing right now is he loves basketball. He's only 10. And we're doing a 30-day commitment, which is, hey, you're going to work on these finishes every single day. The routine takes 5 to 10 minutes. So easy to do, yet most kids are not going to do it. And it's amazing to do. We just finished the commitment, and now we're doing a second commitment. Over the course of 30 days, how much better this kid's left hand is. And so I think the physical act of doing that every day, boy, that's so great for his confidence. It's so great for his game. It's so great for being a teammate. It's hard to be a great teammate if your teammate passes you the ball and you miss the easy shot. And so, that's really why I started Hoop Commitment, was just the idea of how a commitment changed my life. And so I've just been kind of digging into the science, and it's not a secret sauce by any means. And it's not the only tool, it's just one of the tools in your belt that I think is really powerful, that maybe is not as sexy, it's not as interesting as the Kyle Korver 5K underwater, which is, my other son, he's 16. He wants to build muscle. His metabolism is so fast. He's lifting weights. And so we're talking about doing the smoothies. Every morning for breakfast, you have your breakfast, plus you have the smoothie with basically like a protein shake. Same thing. Every night you have your dinner. And so the thing about eating is you can eat till your stomach explodes, and you're not going to gain weight in one day. He's not going to even gain significant amount of weight in a month, maybe not even this year. But what we tell him is, man, if you want to play at the next level, you got 3 years. What if you gained a pound a month? That's 36 pounds in your high school career. And so just, it's not sexy. It's not that exciting. But what I think he'll be successful is because he's making that commitment to do the easy thing every day.
I like both. I really like both. I think doing the easy things, and I could even, we can call it different things, but it's doing the stuff that doesn't take any athletic ability. I've got a client that coached in the NFL for 30 years, and he always taught his players, do the things that take no athleticism. He was an offensive line coach. Guess what? Know the count. Don't jump off sides. No athleticism. So what you've got your older son doing takes no athleticism to make a smoothie. It does take dedication, commitment, discipline. And then the hard stuff, I've been doing a lot of hard stuff lately. It does expand your capabilities. So like for your basketball team at Gonzaga, if they did hard things, not every day, just periodically, it changes your perspective. So if you run a 5K underwater carrying a 70-pound boulder, I mean, what can't you do? That's crazy. I had a young man that was on my podcast 3 or 4 weeks ago. He did a 100-mile run, took him 24 hours, 15 minutes, and 3 seconds. And my response to him was, I can't stay up for 24 hours, 15 minutes, and 3 seconds. So it's like, what can't that kid do? So like for your, I do see you have to coach both your boys differently because they're in different situations. If your 16-year-old or 15 or 16-year-old is wanting to be a basketball player, you already know what he needs to do. You played pro, you played college, you've done this whole thing. The 10-year-old, you just want him to fall in love with the sport.
What's funny is, for sure, there are different things I do with the boys, but I think at the core of it, and who knows, my son's only 16, so we'll see. Ask me in about 30 years how this parenting went. I want the same thing for my 16-year-old too. I always tell him, man, if you don't love it, you're not going to last long enough. You're not going to put the time in. You're not going to have the right mindset to be able to have the career you want. And so we're always trying to find ways to keep it fresh and enjoy it and really look at it as time together. How do you and I go in the gym together and work out? And how do we celebrate afterwards? How do we have good conversations in the car? How do we mix up the routine? How do we compete? How do we do a game where it allows me to have an advantage or you to have an advantage? How do you play with people that you're better than so you learn how to dominate? And how do you play against people that are better than you, and you have to learn how to survive. And so we'll see how this philosophy works. But I think even if it doesn't work in terms of allowing him to be the best basketball player he can be, what I'm just loving it about it is we're just having so much fun, and I'm getting so much great quality time with them. And so once again, that'll just be interesting to see, because I think it's never going to be perfect, but we'll know how impactful and how effective it was here in about 30 years when he has kids and his career's over.
No doubt. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of great things. The thing that I learned two things from my kids. One was to give them no judgment, which, dads do. We judge our kids. And I gave them days where it just wasn't a good day. And we go, hey, let's cut this one short. Go grab a smoothie or whatever it might be. Not every day, but you had to have that latitude to say, hey, you know what? You're not feeling it. So we never forced it. And then the other thing I've told my boys is it's hard. The farther you go, it's hard. And everybody wants easy, but it's hard. Coaches are not going to see you like you see you. They're not going to maybe play you as much as you want to play. They may not recognize you as much. They may not, this is the thing that happens to some players. When you make a great play, the coach wasn't watching. He's talking to somebody on the bench. And then when you dribble it off your foot, he sees it. And then the guy you're competing with for playing time, it's the opposite. Every time he messes up, the coach is like talking to the scoring table or something. And it's like, wow, I can't catch a break.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Coach, what else would you like to add? You knew you were coming on here. You do your own podcast. What would you like to share with our audience that I didn't ask you about?
Well, I think you did a great job. It's fun learning from you. That's the favorite part of me doing my own podcast is selfishly, I get to call up people that I admire and people that are doing what I want to be able to do, and I get to learn from them. And so I would say that if you're interested in basketball nutrition, basketball training, basketball leadership, I definitely don't have all the answers. I'm passionate about it, but I bring on a lot of great people. And so I bring on NBA strength coaches, collegiate strength coaches that I admire their work. And so I called up the strength coach for Kansas and said, hey, can we talk about vertical leap for an hour and pick his brains on how he's training his athletes? And I had a friend that was a strength coach for the Hornets, and he designed a device that reduces the chance of ankle sprains. Hey, can we talk about ankle sprains for the next hour? And so what's kind of fun is the podcast is not for everyone, but if you're interested in the training side of basketball, nutrition, strength conditioning, if you're interested in leadership, I'm bringing on leadership consultants and just trying to learn from people. And so, yeah, it's fun because I think the longer I do this, the more I realize I don't know. And I think you made a great point. We talk about doing the hard thing and the easy thing. I think sometimes I get too one-sided, which is the hard thing is what's best and the easy thing is what's best, when the truth is you got to have all those tools in your tool bag, because for that person in that moment, that one thing could be what they need. And so if you're interested in basketball strength conditioning, nutrition, leadership, I'd love to have you check out the Hoop Commitment podcast.
Okay, so what is your website, Coach?
It's called hoopcommitment.com. Everything is free. I'm a licensed sports nutritionist. I give you my take on nutrition for basketball. It's not necessarily nutrition for cross country or for fitness modeling, but it's going to give you a really good base for what you need to do. I think nutrition is one of the things that really can confuse people, because everyone has a friend that's on a diet that's worked wonders for them. And they think just because it worked for my friend, it must work for me, or it must work for everyone. And so what I'm really into is digging into the principles. What are the tried and true things that were true 100 years ago that will be true in 100 years, and how do we apply them to today? And I do the same thing with strength conditioning. I'm not very well versed in strength conditioning for football, but if you want to learn how to be able to be more impactful on the court, on offense, defense, and transition, if you want to improve your mobility, stability, strength, power, coordination for basketball, I got a pretty good idea on how to do it, and I interview a lot of smart people, and they get to share their ideas. And then the last one, I think, which I'm most excited about, I kind of touched on, is just the leadership piece. And I think I found with my athletes, it's the most important skill in sport. And you could say whether that's leadership or mindset, but I just love the idea of all our destinies are wrapped up in one another. And you mentioned, hey, everyone has these individual goals. Well, it's not possible for everyone to hit those goals. But I found that if we all learn how to be able to work together, then the sum of the parts is never can never even touch how great the whole could be when everyone is synergizing together. And so it's just been super passionate to be able to take all those individual skill sets and then teach people how to be able to elevate them through leadership. And I love it because it's skills that they can take even after their playing days is over. And so I have my 3 levels of basketball leadership, my 3 levels of nutrition, my 3 levels of basketball training. So if you go to hoopcommitment.com, you'll see it all there, and it's all free.
Awesome. One last question, Coach. You've been at Gonzaga for 20 plus years. You played there. You're on staff in the athletic department in the basketball program. Just in case there's a girl out there that's listening that might be considering your school, why would they want to come to your program? Put a plug in for your program. How is it going to transform their life, and what kind of experience are they going to have?
Well, I think there's 3 unique things about our situation here at Gonzaga. And the first is, as far as my role goes, I'm the only director of performance and nutrition, the only head strength coach in the entire nation that I know of that just works with women's basketball. And so if you're coming to Gonzaga and you're looking for a strength conditioning coach, I'm not a football guy that works with basketball. I'm not a basketball guy that also works with golf or tennis. My full-time job is to do basketball strength conditioning. And I'm in the weight room with you full time. And I think that's pretty impactful. The second thing I always tell people is you can't be a great strength coach unless you're a great nutritionist, because food is literally the fuel that drives every move you make on the basketball court. If you want to put on 5 pounds of muscle, the muscle will be created from the food that you eat. And so most high-level basketball programs are going to have a sports nutritionist on staff in another building across campus. And my plug is I'm in the weight room every single day with our ladies. And not only are you going to get the knowledge, you're going to know what to eat, when to eat. It's going to be individualized for your schedule. But then we just do a great job of putting our money where our mouth is. The locker room is going to be filled with all the snacks that are going to help you achieve your goals. We're going to have a handheld every single day. We take the extent of what the NC2A allows, and we really invest in our athletes because we believe that food is fuel. And then the last reason I would say of why you want to come to Gonzaga is because the community. We have an 18-week leadership program that Lisa takes the ladies through. And people will look and see everyone smiling and laughing and connecting in the athletic department. It's not an accident. We're really intentional with what we do here. And the biggest compliment I can give this university is this is where I want my kids to go to school. I want them to be in a place like this where the athletic director knows your name, where the other sport coaches are going to go to your games, the other athletes are going to be supportive of you. We don't have fraternities or sororities here. Really, if you're part of this Gonzaga community, that is your fraternity or sorority. And that's something that I can't really share with you. You have to experience. And so I think the first 2, we give them a tour of the basketball performance center here. And I think that's really impressive. But I think it's not for everyone, but spending a few days here and being around the players, the coaches, the staff, administration, the community, I think you really fall in love with being a Zag.
Awesome. Mike, I want to wish you the best, your program the best, your team this coming season. And maybe even more importantly, I want to wish you the best as a dad.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for everything that you do to help people become their best on and off the field. It's been fun being able to dig into your podcast and obviously taking all your wisdom as a parent and as an agent and helping and learning from other people and passing it along is really valuable. So thank you.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.